Marketing. If you don't promote your music, you're banking on blind luck to get discovered. So how do you go about doing it? This is Anyone Can Play Guitar, the podcast for musicians and music lovers that takes you behind the scenes of the music industry. This week is brought to you in partnership with MGR Music. Ever wanted to learn an instrument, hone your skills, or pick up something completely new? You can get so far by yourself, however professional guidance can make all the difference. With a network of tutors right across the UK and rates starting from as little as £15 per hour, visit mgrmusic.com now to get started.
Here we go with our next instalment, part 2 on music promotion. It's episode 48 with me, Ben, and him,
James.
Sorry, I got a bit of a razzmatazz there, but go.
Yeah, you did. Last week we spoke in detail with Maurice about when, where and how to post content about yourself and your music. How to do this as a DIY musician can take a bit of know-how. We discussed online marketing with Stacey Kehoe of Brand Lective in season 1.
You know, they think they need to be everywhere, and I think that becomes very overwhelming. It's very difficult to maintain, especially if you're trying to do all of your own marketing yourself, as well as, you know, rehearsing and traveling and getting to venues, and you know, some people are still working on the side.
Today you'll hear a bit of this.
If somebody would give you 100,000 subscribers on YouTube instantly, and I mean active subscribers, that would be a lot of pressure.
And a bit of this.
The reach for an artist was gradually becoming less and less and less without paying Facebook all the time. So I think even a few years ago, when I was at the sort of tail end of managing the Aussie Floyd, I was seeing around about 6% of fans were seeing our posts.
Remember, a great way to support the show is to go on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and a review. It really does make a massive difference for the show. Now, on with the episode. So this episode centred around the conversations with both Zach and Maurice. We finished last week's episode with the latter of those two fine gentlemen giving some advice on slowly growing your audience and the benefits of it. Because having a massive fan base on day one, well, that would be awesome, right?
Right.
You don't want to have a large audience when you're starting out. It's actually something that, I don't know, it seems that a lot of musicians want to have like 10,000 followers, but believe me, you don't want to have that. All things that you will start posting if you have 10,000 followers will become so important. You probably can't handle that if you're just starting out. It may sound strange, but that's just the way it is.
Okay, so are you coming at that from the angle of everything would then have orders of magnitude more pressure and focus? Yes. At a point where you could really just do without that level of sort of scrutiny?
Yeah, you will. It will have the amount of pressure that you're not fit for. It's the same as you can't run a marathon if the only thing that you have done the last couple of weeks is walking your dog. That doesn't really add up. So you have to go to the whole process, and you have to walk the full road to see how things are working. You have to fall down a couple of times. You have to hit your head a couple of times and see how you can crawl back from that and try again and try something different and try something new. If somebody would give you 100,000 subscribers on YouTube instantly, and I mean active subscribers, that would be a lot of pressure. They'd probably behead you the first video that you put on there, because there was so many comments, and you never had a comment, and suddenly you have a lot of comments telling you that you're ugly and that you're worthless and whatnot, and you shouldn't be making videos or be making music. So you have to grow into that. It's a process, and you have to just take baby steps in the whole process.
Yeah, it's an angle I'd not given much thought about, but that makes sense. You know, if someone did say, look, pay me X amount of money and I'll guarantee that you can have X amount of thousands of followers on whatever platform, then what tends to happen from experience is that very, very few artists will write absolutely brilliant music on day one.
Yes.
So that makes sense that you need to go through that journey. It's far easier to get some brutal, harsh, maybe fair, but harsh feedback from one person to learn from and become more resilient than it is to get that from a wave of thousands of people.
Exactly. Because you can process that a little bit better.
But even if you have a massive online fan base across the various social media platforms, does that really mean suddenly you're inundated with feedback, likes, comments, and people turning up to your shows? Kevin Brown is the man behind GigRev, the mobile app for musicians that allows artists to connect directly to their fan base. Sounds like an interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
Kevin has been in the music industry for some time. He's managed big bands and sold out many arena-sized tours. In next week's episode, you'll find out more about dedicated apps for bands. But today, we'll start with some sobering insight into the numbers of social media.
Damn algorithms.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
If you look at, there's a few social networks out there. Let's just talk about Facebook for a moment, probably. And I think even if you look back a little bit further and see how we got to where we are, I think it's an interesting sort of route. So the website and forums were the main way that artists would communicate with their fan base. And I think there was, and fan clubs, and I think there was a fundamental change at the beginning of, I don't know, about 98, 99, I guess, where fan clubs started to close down and labels were taking over the fan club and replacing it with a website. I guess at the time, it was really expensive to build a website and bands didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So they, I guess, inadvertently gave the record label their fan club that they ran mostly pretty badly. And I think from there, it left the band with no real communication with the fans. So MySpace came along at the right time and allowed you to communicate and email your fans and build a fan base on there. And of course, that turned out pretty bad in the end. And Facebook came along and gave the same kind of platform as MySpace, but it looks slicker. And people just naturally shifted over to Facebook. Now, I think what happened in that process was, with MySpace, you could still communicate freely with the fan as an artist, and the fans could communicate with you directly. When Facebook came along, the big key difference there is that they became the middleman of that data. So you sign up to Facebook as a person, and you can like pages, and the artist can build a page and they can gather fans. But Facebook sat in the middle of that relationship. At the beginning, it was very, very innocent, and you could communicate with all of your fans whenever you wanted to do. But over time, I guess as the business plan evolved for Facebook, it was obviously, or became in hindsight, an advertising platform, and the reach for an artist was gradually becoming less and less and less without paying Facebook all the time. So I think even a few years ago, when I was at the sort of tail end of managing the Aussie Floyd, I was seeing around about 6% of fans were seeing our posts.
Yeah.
And I think even that was frustrating. Now you're getting less than 1% of your follower base actually seeing anything that you put on your Facebook page, which is very good if you're the artist. And secondly, I think it wasn't what people signed up for, or didn't realise that was going to happen. So now we're in a situation where an artist could have 1 million people on Facebook, or 10,000 people on Facebook, but can just reach a fraction of those people. And if you look at some of the interactions that happen, the likes and the comments, You literally can have hundreds of thousands of followers on Facebook, but get 50 likes and a few comments. There's something really wrong with that.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you pay.
And that's a lot of work as well to put in producing more and more content to have that little interaction.
It is, and I think it's really. I've noticed in the last 12 months that people are starting to say, okay, well, it's over with Facebook. It's not working. Okay, it's Instagram now, but Instagram is just taking that photo and there's no real story around it. I mean, I don't really know how you get that community going now when it's been reduced to a simple photo and a like. I've never seen an interesting comment on Instagram ever. It's literally likes. So it's not really allowing fans to communicate in any sort of meaningful way.
Yeah, no, it's almost just condensing and providing just a single outlet, but it doesn't have the richness perhaps that you really want.
I think that's it. But I think when you look at the tech behind a social network, there's no way a band or most companies can even recreate that kind of experience within their website. And I think that's the problem. It's so good, the tech, that you know, to build a comment system and a way that people can like stuff and serve video. It's just really complex these days. It was dead easy in '99 when you could just knock up a website and stick a video on there and put a list of tour dates and buy a bit of 50 quid software for a forum and off you go. Not anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, all of this sort of boils down to another sort of bit, which is the fundamental change that the music industry's gone through. And artists don't just sell singles and albums and in the same way that they used to. So, you know, monetizing their art is another big challenge for musicians.
Well, it is, and I think what's really interesting is that we all know that, I mean, the touring band, they're going to earn money from CDs and albums and T-shirts and posters, and the tour itself, and it's really dismissed that if you look at sort of mainstream music industry press, it's all about Spotify, it's all about numbers, it's all about quantity of plays. Yet there's quite happily a lot of artists out there that are touring and making money from tour merchandise and tour income. You've interviewed quite a lot of them, so I think it's why should you need to get millions of plays, which actually don't pay you very much anyway, to be relevant, when actually quite happily we've worked with a lot of smaller bands and arena-sized bands that can have 50,000 people on Facebook but sell out Wembley Arena. And it's not the quantity that matters. Interesting that same band, I can't actually name them, but they became, I think, number 3 in the album charts one week with 12,000 physical sales, but only 70 downloads. Oh, sorry, 70 streams.
Right.
So I know, that says a hell of a lot about, one, their income and the fan base.
Yeah. No, I agree. And to your point, you're right. Yes, there's bands selling out arenas who are on tour, but there's plenty of bands out there that we have spoke to that will be doing tours with maybe 100 people or sort of low hundreds going to their gigs, but they can still get by, and make a living doing what they love with those sorts of numbers.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, when you think about the physical merch that's sold, and then I guess the inverse of that is looking at streaming networks, it just, on the face of it, it appears that you've got the artist that knows that he needs to sell physical items and get people to gigs and tickets in order to make money, but then gives away the music for streaming at a payment rate that's so low that most of them don't have a chance to even get 1 million plays. I mean, what's the rates? I mean, you hear figures bounded around between $4,000 and, I don't know, $15,000, maybe $20,000 per million plays on Spotify. Most bands will never get that.
Yeah. No,
And I was
exactly.
speaking to a band yesterday. Actually, it took them 3 years to reach 1 million plays on Spotify. They're in a deal with BMG, and they will, when they finally get paid from PRS, they will get about 4,000 quid.
Yeah, that's
3 years' work.
Yeah, that's not going to pay the rent, is it?
Not really. It makes you wonder. I mean, how many fans buying a physical album at their gigs is going to be the same as 4K coming from streaming? It's not that many, and I think that's where it becomes really important to realise that audience in front of you. That's where the money is.
If we focus on the release of a record for a moment, back to Zach. Remember, there's loads of extra content on his website linked to in the show notes.
So I break that down into just how to get organized, how to kind of create a schedule for yourself, having a release date. I mean, you can make it out of thin air. You close your eyes and select a date on the calendar. It doesn't really matter. People can do this, super quick turnaround, or it was always a kind of industry standard to do a longer rollout. 3 months was, at least in the indie music world, pretty standard. But I feel like that isn't as important to stick to these days. But it probably is wise to give yourself more time than you think you need.
Yeah, things will probably go wrong at some point. There'll be bumps in the road.
Exactly, things go wrong, or exactly. Something that you thought was a given turns out to take weeks, and it's right. Give yourself more time. I think it's a good general strategy. But so it breaks down kind of what you would need for an EPK or electronic press kit, and these things are not all required or anything like that. This is just kind of to help organize your assets and things you might need. From the artwork and your bio, I think that I always get a kick out of pointing this out, but I point this out in the bio part of the electronic press kit section, where it just says, here's a secret: whatever you write in your bio and or press release will be used, oftentimes verbatim, in any review or publicity you receive. I feel like that's a hard lesson when you first learn it. It's like, wait a second, I'm stoked to have the publicity, but they just took exactly what we sent them and then put it up as like the content. But that is oftentimes the way it works. It's the easy, it's the straight line from A to B here.
Yeah, we were surprised with that the first time it happened to us, and like you say, it was a sharp learning curve, because it was like, well, right, we need to bloody well make sure we're saying we're awesome.
Right. Yeah.
if they are just going to literally copy and paste this.
Yeah. Exactly. You might as well write it as though you were your own publicist, and that's the right approach to take. If you're doing this yourself, you really want to think in terms of, well, sure, you're the artist and it's talking about you, but how would you frame this to make it interesting to other people? And it's a skill. I know, I get via the record label, I get, submissions for things a lot or often enough, and sometimes you just want to reach out, if you could, and take people by the collar and say, are you kidding me? Come on. Like, give me something to get excited about, to click the link for your demo. So it's good, to think like a publicist. It's good. I try to put some encouragement in there, but when in doubt, I think a good idea is to have someone in your social network, someone that you trust, someone that likes your band, just even if they don't actually write the press release, to have them give you some notes, what they would say about your band or your music as a fan. I think that can be really helpful, and then you can use parts of that in terms of how you present things.
We say this a lot on the show, that as a musician, likelihood is you're very good at making music, but typically there'll be some things in the business side that you'll be good at, and there'll be other things you're absolutely awful at. And if really selling yourself and writing concise sort of reviews, articles, press type statements, all the rest of it isn't your bag, then you don't want to fall down and have awesome music, but just because you're not good at that component part, that the whole thing unravels. So I think your point of getting, whether it's some outside help or review or whatever, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, writing a song and writing a press release are two different animals.
Yeah.
So anyway, once you've kind of got the basic assets that you'll need, we're going to kind of skip I think salient point of publicists and radio agents are picky, and you can always send things to them, but chances are you're going to get rejected. It's fine to send them your stuff though, but just be prepared.
Now you're ready to release your music, but when and how do you start your promotion and press releases? Here's Zach again.
This really is, I think, probably the number one question that I've gotten from the site, which is, what is a press release strategy? When do I send? I've done my research. I've put together my list of outlets, from Rolling Stone to Stereo Gum, that I want to send things to, and I'm all ready. Now, when do I send it, and how often do I send, and whatnot? So I broke this down into 3 emails, and I wound up calling them the announcement, which is 4 to 6 weeks before your release date, and then the friendly reminder, which is when you're kind of closing in on your release date, and then a follow-up. Because I think a pretty common experience is not getting any feedback from the first 2 releases, or the first 2 press releases, and then your release date has come and gone, and it's probably still wise to try to salvage any potential for some attention. I think the toughest part of all of this is to differentiate between press outlets in general and specific places, specific outlets that you are a fan of, or that you follow, or that you have a connection to, or that you can really see your music appearing on. Mm-hmm. And it's really good, you want to do some things in bulk, and you want to do some things that are really specific to you and what you care about. And if it's your dream to have your music on Stereo Gum, it's probably wise or it is wise, I think, to let Stereo Gum know that. I mean, if you treat them, in this example, if you treat Stereo Gum as you do just the general research, and you just send these generalized emails as your press releases, and they just get the general release, I don't think that they're ever aware that what you really care about, or you really value, or you feel an affinity with them. I think it matters, whatever, whoever it is, even if it's Rolling Stone or somebody, much less your local music blog or anything like that. It's like making that connection and making it clear that you follow them, and you like what they do, and you think that you would really love them to give your music a shot. I think that is the best bet for bands to secure some promo.
So we'll come back to Zach in a moment, but let's just pause very briefly on music bloggers.
Pause.
I'll tell you for why, Ben, because when you caught up with Louisa of She Drew the Gun, yep, they were talking a bit about bands entering competitions, mm-hmm, and the importance it can have, even if you just get on the radar of a few music bloggers.
With the Glastonbury one, I just thought it's the mother of all band competitions, isn't it? And yeah, even if you just get through to the first bit, it means that bloggers are listening to you. Yeah. It means journalists are listening, and it's just more ears to get in front of, really, isn't it? Because there's so much music getting put out on a daily basis that there's so much good stuff as well. It's sometimes just about getting heard, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. How important do you think bloggers are now then?
Yeah, they're just because I feel like it's just a sea of music out there at the moment. Like it's just like so much getting churned out all the time, and it's good because there's loads of stuff to discover that in the old days it would have just all been in the charts kind of thing. And people can make their own discoveries, and you know there's loads of things to find, but also it's like you do need people to you do need a few people to shout about you, or you know, take interest in you and put it out to people.
This week is brought to you in partnership with MGR Music. Ever wanted to learn an instrument, hone your skills, or pick up something completely new? You can get so far by yourself, however professional guidance can make all the difference. With a network of tutors right across the UK and rates starting from as little as £15 per hour, visit mgrmusic.com now to get started.
Now it's that point in the show where we look at our regular good cause. We've just heard from Louisa from She Drew the Gun, so let's just stick with her.
I give a shout out to the Whitechapel Centre in Liverpool, which is a homeless kind of centre for looking after homeless people, and then probably shelter as well. Because obviously it's really harsh times at the moment, and there's a lot of people homeless.
I think that's a great charity.
You can find out more about Whitechapel at whitechapelcentre.co.uk and shelter at shelter.org.uk. Now, back to the episode.
A key factor can be personalising your communications. No matter what the format or media outlet, it will take extra time, but it can reap rewards.
You know, just going through the motions, I think oftentimes results in the kind of going through the motions response, which is for indie artists without any, real standing, is rejection. But if you're able to personalize it and make any kind of connection, express any kind of affinity, I think that it matters on the other side too, and it probably increases your chances of, at the very least, communicating about it. Where you get something substantial back, where they say, well, we can't promote, we're not going to give this an entry right now, but there's something cool about it if you do something else, like send this, just any kind of connection. You're trying to build an audience, you're trying to build a network of industry support.
Our full interview with Zach goes into detail about advertising on US college radio.
He's done a fair bit of it.
Mm-hmm. If you're based in the US and want to find out more, or in general want to hear some more from the wider discussion we had with him, be sure to check out the whole interview when it's released towards the end of the season.
We finish off with Zach by covering what are the main internet platforms to have a presence on, in his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There's never a right or wrong answer to this question, and it is constantly shifting.
I think even more important than having your own website or anything like that, I think having the basic platform presence on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, and YouTube. It's like if you're on those things, and even SoundCloud, I feel like I would almost put Bandcamp. I'd almost say Bandcamp, YouTube, SoundCloud at this point. But what it gives you is the ability to share your music and your basic brand identity with anyone. I mean, it's democratic like that, and being set up here, having your information in there, having all of your kind of links organized, and having your content in there in a best practices approach really is the legwork to being able to give anyone that encounters your music the best experience you can give them online right now. So those are really the things. I think that if you also want to create a website, again, an expense kind of comes with that, but it's really just a matter of what's the surest path to getting your content appreciated by other people that would ultimately be fans or supporters or have an interest in it. And I really think these are the kind of to me, as far for specifically for music, these are the most important: Bandcamp, YouTube, and SoundCloud.
James, got a question for you. What are posters? Remember those?
Ooh, posters, those things that you put on like paper.
Yes, paper.
And you hang them with like blue tack. And...
Yeah. So you literally print your design on some paper and put it on a wall somewhere.
No way.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's an actual wall,
That'll
James.
never catch on.
Actual wall, not a digital one.
Right.
Here's Maurice.
Well, I think it fits. It can fit right in. It's a dying art probably, because the problem with that is that it's a lot less measurable than online marketing. If you have thousands of followers on Facebook, then you can instantly see who's interacting with you and who's not. And then you can, if you want to market your new album, then you can kind of filter that out. Facebook had thousands of filters that can filter out exactly those 10 people that are most likely to buy your album. And then one will buy your album, and then you're happy.
Yeah.
But in the real world, it's like you put up posters and you print like 1,000 posters and you hang them. And then it's just like, okay, I don't know who's actively looking at it and also interacting with it. Some people might read it and it'd be like, oh, there's a band. I don't know what, I never heard of them. It's going to be whatever. And they just move on. So you have no control on that. So it's not something that you shouldn't do, but if you want to do it, then you have to be really conscious about where you're going to hang those posters or where you're going to put those flyers. Maybe even contact some local pubs that have bands more regularly, like every week or something like that. That can be a great place to put your poster up there, because the people that are looking at that are probably going to be there next week.
So what should we be measuring in our marketing then, Maurice?
It ties a little bit in with the small baby steps that you have to take. So because you're taking small steps, you also want to just measure small steps that your social plan is making. So if you have one new follower, and it's a follower that also sends you a DM telling you that they listen to your album and they really like your music, that is very valuable, and that is something that you really want to measure. It's also a good thing, if you're still small in terms of numbers, that you have the time and energy to interact with those people, so you can build up strong relationships. So the interaction numbers, so if for example the shares or the comments that you get, the meaningful comments that you get on post, those are going to be the more important metrics. And it doesn't even have to be like the Google Analytics kind of thing, you know, the whole numbers, statistics thing. That becomes interesting if you become bigger. Then you can start with that. You can also start with the Facebook statistics and see what works there. But if you're the absolute beginner, interaction is the most important thing that you should be measuring. So the more shares a post gets, or the more positive comments you get, or meaningful comments you get on a post, those are the things that are valuable. Even if it's like 5 comments on your latest video, it's 5 comments, and not some with a thumbs up or with a fire thing or whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't mean those. The ones that say like, okay, I really like this, or your guitar is a little bit off, but the riff is cool. Those are the things those are also the people that you want to interact with.
When it comes to interacting with fans on social media, a word of caution from Dave Keuning. Do you interact with fans as well on social media?
I do,
that's like a new
actually.
thing now, isn't it? Like compared to when the Killer started.
Yeah, I do react or interact with fans. Instagram probably more than most. I'm not super active on Facebook or Twitter, but I like Instagram, and some people tell me I shouldn't do it. Like, oh, you shouldn't. You can. You might say something wrong, you might do this, and then the fans go and report. I've actually already done that a couple times. I've like said something that someone misinterpreted about another band, and then they ran off and told, he said he doesn't listen to your music, and I was like, well, I wasn't sure you were talking about it at the time, but
yeah,
things like that can happen. But I usually interact with fans. The danger is sometimes I get a lot of messages, and then I don't reply, and then they're like, hey, you replied to the last one but not this one. It's like, well, I get to them when I can get to them.
Wonderful.
We've covered a lot in our delve into marketing promotion so far, Ben. We'll end this episode with a story from those good old cheeky chaps of We Are Scientists.
Yes.
Now,
I did find the story interesting and funny.
if you're going to commit to doing something on social media...
Commit is a key word, James.
Just remember, internet access can be a pretty key ingredient for that going well.
Yes.
We once had an Instagram takeover that we were doing for a giant California promoter called Golden Voice, which is also involved in other North American locations these days. But I think when we started out 15 years ago or so, they were basically Southern California. But they started Coachella, for example.
Okay.
And so we did an Instagram takeover. We were driving from Portland to San Francisco, and we decided to go off the beaten track so we could find some swimming holes. And so we had no phone service for like the whole day of our supposed takeover. And we have not been invited back to Coachella since.
Keith, Chris, good work. So you've heard a lot in the last 2 episodes about music and marketing. The common theme for us is finding something that works for you. Put yourself at the heart of what you're doing. Remember, James, and I cannot stress this enough, always be yourself, because people will see you when you're not.
Yeah.
Personalise what you do and present yourself in the best possible way, in the best possible places that your audience can hear you and get a feel for you and your music. It is some hard work, but it's essential for success.
Additional news snippets from the interviews you've heard today will pop up in other episodes later in the season. And at the end of season 2, we'll release each conversation with all of our guests in full as standalone episodes. As a reminder, if you like the show, please take a few seconds just to give us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts from. It makes a huge difference in helping us grow our audience and promoting the show. Coming up next week, it's mobile apps for bands. You've already heard a bit today from Kevin Brown of GigRev, but now we go into detail as to why the social media platforms of today don't work for music, and why the mobile app dedicated to a specific band or artist is the future. Here's just one of the many reasons Kevin goes into.
Your mum and dad's on there, your kids might be on there, your colleagues at work might be on there, your boss could be on there, you know. So how do you actually post something to Facebook without offending one of them?
All of the show notes for today's episode can be found at acpgmusic.com, along with our back catalogue of episodes. If you like what you hear, or perhaps have some improvements or specific guests you'd like us to consider, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at info@acpgmusic.com or hit us up on social media. Keep supporting upcoming artists, and we'll catch you next time.